Good evening, folks. My name is Brian Lawrence, and this is the inaugural edition of the IndianPeaksWeather.net weather webcast. And we're looking at the weather underground temperature map right now. This is what they call their Wonder Map. And you can see it's a chilly night across northeastern Colorado. It's actually not too much below normal, but we've been experiencing such mild weather here this fall that we get a night of normal temperatures, and it seems quite chilly. You can see across the plains right now down in Boulder, temperatures generally ranging from the upper 30s to the lower 40s, even down towards Denver and Westminster, the same story, right around the 40-degree mark. A little bit cooler when we get up here into the foothills of Colorado, and this is where we live in Nederland. And you can see here, this 30-degree temperature right here is about where we live. And back towards Nederland, temperatures are generally in the upper 20s to about 33 degrees. So a cool night. The National Weather Service has issued frost advisories out on the plains for later tonight and early tomorrow morning. Up here in the foothills, we've already had our freeze several weeks ago. Our growing season is over. So just a chilly night. Temperatures generally below freezing all night long. And we're looking at another cool day tomorrow as well. Current weather right now, take a look at the satellite image. I'm going to start with the infrared, and we'll loop over the past 12 hours. You can see some interesting features on here as we loop through. Here in northeastern Colorado, you can see a disturbance pushing down across us. You can almost see the spin in the atmosphere there as it moves toward north. And that's what brought some snow showers earlier today to the foothills and to the higher peaks and mountains. It also brought some rain showers to the plains. The atmosphere was pretty unstable today, and it brought a quick reinforcing shot of cool air as well across northeastern Colorado. Storm air conditions persisting across the central and eastern third of the country right now. We're seeing the remnants of Hurricane Patricia, mainly in the form of moisture, streaming northward, interacting with the storm system over northern Missouri. Not a strong storm system, but there's a lot of moisture for it to work with. So we're seeing some pretty widespread rains right now, stretching all the way from the East Coast back into the Midwest. Not so for us right now in the West, but things are looking up for the ski areas over the next few weeks. We could be getting into a cooler and stormier pattern, and those are magic words for anybody that loves to ski and play in the snow in the western U.S. So generally, when we're looking at long-range forecasts, or at least when I'm looking at long-range forecasts, I like to get an idea of trends first before trying to figure out specifics. Usually start with the Climate Prediction Center's 6 to 10 day outlook. And as I said, it's looking promising. They're forecasting a high probability of below normal temperatures across the Great Basin, here in the west, and a high probability of much above normal temperatures across the east. And that's a little bit of a reversal of what we've seen over the past week or so. Precipitation-wise, again, looking fairly promising for some of the ski areas in northern Utah and back towards Lake Tahoe and even Colorado, with above normal precipitation possible. Also like to look at the 8 to 14 day outlook as well from the Climate Prediction Center. And again, the same story. We're looking at a fairly persistent period of some cooler and wetter conditions in the west. I'm going to switch over to the NSET model page and take a look at the GFS. I don't think the 0Z is completely coming in yet, so why don't we take a look at the 18Z? Let's see here. Yeah, well, look at the 0Z for the initial. We'll pull in 6Z, which is right about now. And again, you can see, looking back at that satellite image, you can see this large area of precipitation associated with a fairly weak area of low pressure. So you can see the warm front here, and the moisture streaming up northward from the Gulf of Mexico. And a lot of that moisture, again, is from Hurricane Patricia. And you can also see that disturbance that brushed northeastern Colorado today through here. A weak cold front came through, producing a reinforcing shot of cold air and some showers and snow showers as well. Most of that cold air is going to stay to our north, though, and this little cold air outbreak, quote-unquote outbreak, is not going to last very long. I'm going to step forward a little bit, go back to the 18Z run since it's complete, and we'll loop move through the thickness and surface pressure map. We'll stop right about midday Wednesday. And I'll step forward a little bit. And you can see as we do this that Wednesday will be a fairly tranquil day in eastern Colorado. Not much in the way of precipitation. However, that's going to change on Thursday, later on Thursday night into Friday, as the storm system moves to our south. Now, at this point, it looks like the bulk of the precipitation is going to stay to our south and east. In fact, this is Friday afternoon. You can see some more substantial precipitation over Nebraska, back into western Kansas, and just barely stretching into eastern Colorado. I don't think this is going to be a big precipitation maker for the Colorado Front Range, the foothills, or any place west of the divide for that matter either, just some general light shower activity. And then as we get into Friday night, you can see that storm system starts to pull away. And then by Saturday morning, it's centered over eastern Kansas, pulling away, heading up towards the Great Lakes, Chicago, Wisconsin, and our area. Again, fairly warm temperatures, not expecting a lot of frozen precipitation with that in these areas. Things get more interesting as we get towards the end of the weekend. You can see that we'll be sandwiched between the exiting storm system on Saturday and Sunday and a storm system that is diving down into the Pacific Northwest. You can see some pretty good precipitation actually through the Cascades here. This is great news for these areas. They've had a very dry summer. They had a dry winter last winter. A lot of fires up there, and this precipitation is going to help with the fire situation. It's also going to help with skiing and snowmaking. Some cooler temperatures with the storm. In fact, you can see some decent looking precipitation amounts down towards Lake Tahoe here. This storm system dives into the west across northern California on Monday. And then it dives down into northern Arizona and the Great Basin by Wednesday morning. This initial push of cold air and moisture looks like it's going to favor western Colorado, as you can see here. It's going to be one of those events where it'll be upslope on the west side of the divide, so areas like Winter Park, Grand Lake, Steamboat Springs, back towards Powderhorn, Grand Junction, and even down to the San Juans could see some precipitation. And the snow levels will be relatively low. Looking at the thicknesses here, 546 thickness, snow levels could be getting down to 6,000 feet. So some much needed moisture in western Colorado. And then things get a little bit more interesting for us as we get into later next week. I think this is a week away, and there's plenty of uncertainty in the forecast. But still, the trend, overall trend in the pattern is, again, for wetter and cooler temperatures and conditions across the west, which is always good news for us. You can see as we get into Thursday of next week, some substantial looking precipitation across northeastern Colorado. Cool temperatures as well. Nice cool area of high pressure to our north. Thickness is getting down to 540 across northeastern Colorado would mean snow down to the plains. It's were to verify. As the storm system pulls out, as I said, there'll be one not too far behind it according to the GFS. So that by the following week, another storm system will be pushing into the Great Basin. So the pattern is looking promising, but there's quite a bit of uncertainty. And you can see uncertainty by looking at what we call ensemble plots or spaghetti plots. In this case, we're going to look at the 500 millibar GEFS ensemble plot. Let's slow it down a little bit. And you can see, in fact, let me stop it. Each one of these lines here is a run of the same model with the same initialization time, but with slightly different initialization parameters. And then what happens is they plot different levels of the atmosphere. In this case, 500 millibars. This is about 15,000 feet up in the atmosphere. It tends to be the level of where the winds they track the storms, and so we tend to like to look at 500 millibars. It gives us an idea, a pretty good idea of how storms are going to move. Also gives us a really good idea of where ridges are, troughs are, and where there's energy in the atmosphere. So you can see early on into this week in the ensemble plots, the lines are fairly consistent. consistent. So I would say there's some high confidence in the forecast that the trough will be diving into the Pacific Northwest. That starts to diminish the confidence in the forecast as we get into early next week. In fact, you can see some of the ensemble members are closing that low off over California, and some of them are rejecting it fairly quickly to our north across Wyoming. So there isn't much confidence in next week's storm system in the forecast. And you can see as we get further out, well, it's a spaghetti plot. That's why they call it a spaghetti plot. You know, it's all over the board as we get a few weeks out. So taking a look at some of the latest guidance, and this is MOS guidance, Model Output Statistics, gives a kind of an idea of the trends of what's going to happen as well. You can see this is down on the plains. At Denver, I think at the airport, temperatures generally near normal next couple days, and then we get a little bit of warm air, and as we get between those two storm systems on Saturday and Sunday, then things start to cool off as we get into next week, and the probability of precipitation starts to go up again next week, as well as that next storm system dives into the Great Basin area. So overall, looking like a really great weekend here in northeastern Colorado. After a few showers, maybe a few snow showers in the mountains on Friday, temperatures on the plains probably getting into the upper 60s, maybe even 70 by Sunday. Subtract about 10, 15 degrees, about 15 degrees for Nederland for the daytime highs, and we're still looking at temperatures in the mid to upper 50s, which is still nice for us. We're almost in for late October, early November. And then, of course, we have to watch that storm system next week and see what it does, and see if it'll bring us our first significant snow. And we're about due for that. Well, thank you for joining me, and I'll try to put together something again tomorrow night. Have a good night.